I liked hearing certain tidbits about the Rockets when I put my ears on the street this weekend. From what I know, it is sounding less and less like James Harden will be a Rocket. Part of it's the contract, but more importantly, it seems like the Rockets, at the very least, are self-aware about bringing unmoldable personalities into the room. And it will once again be a matter of, hey, is Tillman Fertitta, Patrick Fertitta, are they going to push Stone, the general manager of the Rockets, to sign him? I think it's really up to that. But I feel a lot better about the idea of James Harden not being a Houston Rocket after having those conversations with a couple of people. They're also, I guess, looking to move up in the draft, and we've seen that before. And the main reason they're looking to move up isn't necessarily because of the players that are available. It's, I guess, partly because they're thinking about putting together something for Zion Williamson. I guess the Pelicans really want the number 2 overall pick, probably for Scoot Henderson or something like that. Well, from what we know, and this was put out by, I think, Brian Windhorst over the weekend, Zion Williamson doesn't have a relationship with the Pelicans organization, and there is a minimal relationship between he and his teammates, from what I understand. And that's totally checks out just based off of what you saw the last 2 years as they're trying to get in the playoffs. He's doing dunks and warm-ups, but he's not actually playing in these games. And you would think, especially as having seen Zion when he's actually rarely 100%, like the guy's awesome as a player in the NBA. Like he can play in this league. It's just, can he get on the court? That's the big problem right now. I'm intrigued by the idea of Zion, and I do think, I mean, Udoka, if he can't get the most out of Zion, say that trade were to happen, like it's just never going to happen for Zion. But there's also a part of me that thinks that New Orleans is pretty crazy to be shopping him around, because isn't it in their best interest to keep a guy who has now been not only humiliated off the court, but I think also on the court with just not being out there because of his size, because of his weight. That's like now out in the open thanks to Mariah Mills, who I believe is still tweeting about the incident. So shout out to her for making this thing last over 15 seconds. It's been, I think, a week plus. But I feel like with Williamson, it would be weird if the Pelicans actually gave up on him, because I feel like he could actually make it work still. Right? Like, he's still got that talent. It's just a matter of, like, is this going to embarrass you enough to start acting like an adult? And it should be. But I do think that Udoka would be good for him. I think the problem is Houston has too much good food, and Houston has too many strip clubs.
Yeah, I also, just the idea that, like, the Pelicans, trading for him means the Pelicans would have given up on him, and they have more information than you, not only his health-wise, but also his maturity-wise. And now you're bringing that in. You're, trading all this capital to bring him in. And on the court, as a player, would love his fit. The maturity, the health, which kind of go hand in hand. If he was more mature, he would be eating and training like an NBA player should, and the health gets better, but it hasn't quite gotten there.
If they were to make a move, you wonder, how the hell would the Rockets get up to 2? The name floated. This will piss some people off. Alpi. Şengün would be used to potentially move up, because the picks that they have a bunch of picks from Brooklyn over the years. Who knows what they're going to actually be, though. That is, I think, their big chip. And I think there is certainly credence to the idea that maybe Şengün isn't that happy here, especially with the way that things went last year, and it might not just be due to Stephen Silas. I think there's perhaps a divide, and I don't know if it's a language thing or something else, between he and the rest of the team. And there, I think, were at times like some diva tendencies that you saw from him out on the court. So that could be a reason. I would be pretty frustrated to see them move him, but at this point in time, like, if you have the opportunity to go get Zion, I think you should think about it. It's a distressed asset, and the best case scenario, I mean, you have like one of the coolest players in basketball.
Yeah, I definitely think that you should think about, like, this is like very much like a 55-45 decision for me personally. Of 55%, I don't think I would do it. Like, I don't think I would actually like the idea of actually putting all your chips in, or a lot of your chips in. So the idea of this is that they trade up to 2 and then send 2 plus Sengun or whoever to New Orleans to get Zion. Because the Pelicans have reported, or not the Pelicans haven't reported, people have reported that the Pelicans are trying to get up to 2 to get Scoot. And at a certain point, I almost would rather the Rockets trade up for 2
and get Scoot
and just get Scoot. Instead of going up to get number 2 and then throwing more stuff to get Zion.
Especially if they are perhaps thinking to themselves, we don't want to bring in James Harden because he's a personality that's unmoldable. We don't want to bring in Chris Paul because of the same thing. We want to set our own thing, and those guys, they set their own agendas. Are we all of a sudden going to say, well, but Zion's different than the 2 guys that actually have had successful careers in the NBA and for the most part have been durable?
Yeah, we're going to take a risk
right
on this.
Yeah, it would be big.